why the disinclination on the part of Chief Executive Peter Murrell to confirm the number of members the party has? Surely that's information that's vital to candidates in an election race.
Yes, Neil, every single candidate, not just two of them, but every candidate that asked for the membership numbers to be published. Two of them wrote to Peter Murrell. However, it's actually up to the National Executive Committee to release that information. Our National Secretary, Lord McFlynn. Then there was a vote at our National Executive Committee and those numbers were released. I do agree, however, that fundamentally the candidates should have been told the size of the electorate of the leadership election. It seems to me like it was a bit of an own goal on our part. Unfortunate, but I did support the numbers being released as well, and I'm glad that they were. What I find very unfortunate was that the head of press, Murray, in the Scottish Parliament, then found himself in an untenable position when he was asked to report on numbers that weren't accurate. That should never have happened. I think it's deeply sad that he felt he had to resign. And Peter Murrell's put in a pivot of work, being our chief executive since 1999. However, I think that after what happened, it was only correct that he did tender his resignation.
The figures released, Austin, the figures finally released revealed a 40% fall in membership. It's not a ringing endorsement of the popularity of Ms Sturgeon or the SNP, is it?
Yeah, I mean, the SNP had a massive boom of members joining up in 2014-2015 year. And then what happened is after that, over years, numbers did deplete. My understanding is that, looking at social media, that many members didn't realise that their memberships had lapsed and they have rejoined the party. One of the other key things that we should know about the figure that was released is the figure over 72,000 members. Those are figures that are eligible to vote in the leadership election. They do not count people that joined the day after Nicola Sturgeon resigned. So the number of SNP members may actually be higher, and I would suspect it would be higher now because I've seen many people rejoining the party, and I would support the voluntary publication of membership on a regular basis, and I believe that every single leadership candidate has committed to that, and I think that transparency and openness is always key in democracy, and we should be able to publish our membership figures on a regular basis, and that would resolve any of these issues moving forward.
Here's to transparency and democracy, absolutely. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford, a former member of the SNP, may I ask you why and when you left the party?
Yes, indeed. I joined the party in 1998 when I was still a serving army officer, and I went on what was known then as the party's confidential list held at party headquarters. And that list was full of people like myself who were in positions of public service where participation in the SNP was frowned upon. And so it was a confidential list. But I then left the army, campaigned for the SNP, became their junior defence spokesman for the blink of an eye, to be honest, and then left in 2002. And I left in 2002 for a variety of reasons. But one of the reasons was that I didn't feel that as a sort of, shall we say, fortunate, privately educated, middle-class Glasgow boy with kids at private school, I was a bit a fish out of water at that time. Of course, things may have changed now.
And Stuart, who would be your choice of leader? Were you in a position to affect that?
I mean, there's a difficult question. I have already called the result of the leadership election, and I called it before all the current shenanigans and resignations happened. But my perception is that although Hamza Yousaf is if you like, the establishment continuity candidate, he'll not get sufficient votes at the first round of voting. In other words, he won't go over 50% of the votes. And it will go to a second round. Ash Regan, who is if you like, the third candidate, will probably drop off at that point. And then her second preference votes under the single transferable vote proportional representation methodology of voting will probably, the bulk of them will go to Kate Forbes. And on that basis, Kate Forbes will probably take the leadership by a whisker, I would say. I don't think it's not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination.
Thank you, Stuart. Austin, what would be your prediction? What are you saying? Who are you backing?
Yeah, I'm backing Humza Yousaf to be the next leader of the SNP. Humza is the only candidate that is committed to equality and keeping in line with the progressive policies at the heart of government that have seen the SNP win election after election. I do believe that the contest will be close. We should take nothing for granted. The SNP is a broad church of people, and it's going to be interesting to see the results. Although I'm backing Humza 100%, once the leader is elected, whoever that may be, all must accept the result as Democrats, and then for this to deliver independence of Scotland. That's what our membership will expect from whoever is elected leader, and the public will expect that.
Time being against me as always, Austin. Ash Regan has claimed that supporters of Humza Yousaf are being bussed into his hustings. Her words, not mine. And Kate Forbes has strenuously questioned his abilities in any of his roles at transport, justice, most recently health. And yet he has your confidence.
Well, Ash Regan says lots of things, but I don't think the members are paying attention. I think that will reflect in the leadership ballot. Ash Regan, all she wants to do is have meetings about things, but doesn't actually come forward with any substantial policies of her own. When it comes to the briefs that Humza Yousaf has had, for example, as Transport Minister, he delivered the Queensferry crossing ahead of schedule and under budget. And then, for example, when it comes to his health brief, the only part of the UK that hasn't had any strike action in the face of the pay disputes. That's thanks to his and efforts of reaching out across that brief. So Humza Yousaf has had some of the toughest roles in government. I'm not saying that everything's been perfect, but he's certainly outperformed his counterparts in other parts of the UK, in the Westminster government or in the Welsh government. So that's why Humza has my confidence, because he has had a tough time and he has passed the test of resilience.
Well, a week on Monday we will see that result one way or another. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford and Austin Sheridan, SNP's past and future, thank you both for your time this evening. Jasmine, is that election contest one that captures your imagination at all?
Not in a big way, if I'm honest. You know, it does bother me that I'm not keen on I've forgotten his name, Humza
Yousaf.
Yeah, Humza Yousaf. I mean, I'm not keen on
that. Speaks volumes. You can't remember his name.
No, it does rather, doesn't it? Actually, yeah. I'm not thrilled by the fact that he by his ideology and the fact that he would continue what's been happening up until now. I prefer Kate Forbes.
Well, Lord Taylor, what do you make of Kate Forbes? Is devoutly Christian and is open about that. How do you feel about her being judged continually and questioned continually about what that might mean for her stance on various topics, and yet Humza Yousaf, who describes himself as a proud Muslim, is not questioned in relation to his Islamic faith?
Well, leadership is about action, not just position. I don't know Kate Forbes, but she is a Christian and she speaks her mind. And so for that reason, I would support her. But a party that can't even tell you how many members it has, you have to really question whether they can do anything for Scotland. But Kate Forbes at least speaks her mind, even though she knows it damages her, but at least she's open about it.
Jasmine, what do you think? What troubles me as a Scot living in Scotland, for as long as I can remember, the SNP has paid precious little attention to what's actually happening in Scotland and has been, I would say, disastrous for Scotland across the board. Yeah. And I fear that regardless of who actually takes up the reins, it will just be more of the same, this relentless pursuit of separation.
Well, exactly. And that is, you know, as you said, more of the same. I'd like to see something very different. Apart from anything else, it has affected us in England. I mean, we have seen through the WhatsApp messages that much of the lockdown was because of Nicola Sturgeon going, we're going to lock down, we're going to do this, or we're going to have 3 masks on. Oh, well, in England, we better have 4 masks. And it's been extremely damaging for us. The whole thing, I think, is divisive and unhelpful.
What's Sir Alex Ferguson? They should choose him, the ex-Man United manager. He'd sort them out.
I'm going to move straight on from that remark, Lord Taylor. What about, though, you know, the fact that Nicola Sturgeon, First Minister, stepping down very abruptly? Yeah. Her husband, the Chief Executive of the Scottish National Party, quickly stepping down.
I suspect that more things will come out to show why she stepped down. A very odd timing, just to step down so abruptly.
Did you regard Nicola Sturgeon as she was often described, as a formidable politician or not?
there's a difference between being a politician and a statesperson, and I think she's more politrix, and she was very good at making sure the attention was on her. She wasn't really grooming anybody to follow her, and we can see that now. None of the three really have the personality that she has, but I think she's left Scotland in a mess, frankly.
Absolutely, I agree. And as you say, you know, it speaks volumes that I couldn't think of the names.
And what about Ash Regan? Are you aware of her existence prior to her stepping down over the gender reform bill debacle?
No, frankly, I wasn't, not particularly. And you know, it makes you guys make a very good point that it was a very sudden stepping down of Nicola Sturgeon and her husband. Came very quickly, of course, after Jacinta Ardern. You know, you almost wonder if they'd been chatting on the phone, going, "Oh, I'm sick of this," you know, for some reason. And you're wondering who's going to be next. We haven't had anybody recently, but you know, some people have been suggested.
I very much doubt that Jacinta Ardern had Nicola Sturgeon's phone number ready to hand, and would probably have had to Google it.
That's true.